If I asked you to describe yourself, would you lead with a doctor, a lawyer, a famous content creator, maybe a YouTuber? Would you lead with what you do and your credentials versus who you are at your core? In today's video, we're going to be talking about how to be more self-aware. And that begins with understanding who you are versus what you do. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time tuning in, my name is Stefania. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button and join this family. On this channel, we are consistently growing and evolving. I upload content centered around faith, personal growth and development, lifestyle. And in today's video, we're going to be exploring what it means to be self-aware. I wanted to bring this topic about becoming more self-aware because as we are in a fast-paced society where we have so much noise on the outside, we hear everyone else's voice. We hear the voice of our pastor, the voice of our favorite leader or our parents. We hear everyone else's voice, and most times we neglect the most important voice, and that is the voice within, which I believe is the voice of God, which can also be interpreted as your own inner voice. And it's taken me a long time to get here, but when you become more self-aware, the direct consequence of that is beginning to understand who God is and what you were truly born to do. Starting off, I think it'll be really hard to get to know someone or to become more self-aware if you never spend time with yourself. If you never spend intentional time away from all the noise, from the opinions, and truly lock in with yourself. And so we're beginning with number one. How to become more self-aware is by shutting out the noise, dialing back from what everyone else is telling you to do, what everyone else thinks you should be doing, and really taking the time to center yourself and truly look within. I was watching this one podcast a couple nights ago, and the premise of that podcast, they were just talking about different life experiences, and there was this one person who was saying that as a result of this advice he was given by a particular leader, he made a choice within himself to go down a direction opposite than what he felt within himself to do, which was right. And later down the line, he later on regrets this decision deeply because he decided to take the word of this leader versus what he felt God telling him to do internally. And this can be a danger zone because we all need wise counsel, right? We need someone there to hold us accountable and give us wisdom. But this can become dangerous if you are someone who is over reliant on outside sources outside of yourself. You can't even distinguish your own voice. You can't even distinguish being true to yourself because you don't know yourself. And becoming self-aware, you're able to filter through those advice that may seem out of season, maybe something that doesn't fit for you in that particular season. But part of that, and a lot of people can relate to what happened to this person who was sharing this on that podcast. A part of the problem most times when we are struggling to be self-aware, underneath that is being a people pleaser. You guys, y'all are looking at an ex-people pleaser. And I say that with so much bass in my voice because the danger of being in that prison, of being a people pleaser, you are bound by people's expectations, people's demands, what you should be doing. And this can sometimes steer you away from where God actually wants you to be. This is dangerous for anyone who has people-pleasing tendencies because you'll always feel the need to betray yourself and to go against what you know is right to do in your own heart to please people. And so the major first component of becoming more self-aware is shutting out the outside noise, dialing back. It's okay to look for wisdom and outside instruction, but there comes a time where you have to learn how to make your own choices. And being self-aware, you have to know that even if you do make the wrong choices, because it's going to happen. None of us are perfect. Not one of us, not even your leader. But I had to learn this even for myself, that even when you make mistakes, Those mistakes could build your confidence if you see those mistakes as lessons as opposed to failures. Every mistake that I've ever made in my life has taught me lessons that I now talk about in videos or in my writings. This is such an important part, because as you grow and mature through life, everyone is going to have an opinion about what you should do. Everyone. You have to be able to discern the source behind what people are telling you and if it aligns with you. And you're not going to be able to do that if you are not self-aware, if you don't know what works for you. There are many methods out there that work for certain entrepreneurs or people that do YouTube content, but I'm self-aware enough to know not everything works for me. I know what works for me, and I just stay in that lane. It would have been more difficult if I didn't have that level of self-awareness and just went with everything everyone told me. And that could be very dangerous. So I caution any one of you guys to truly lock in within yourself. I'm not saying to self-isolate, because we need community, but there needs to be a balance when taking advice from outside sources or letting people speak into your life. There needs to be a balance, and you need to exercise discernment when taking outside input. So the second thing here in becoming more self-aware and being self-aware is knowing who you are. Knowing what your true identity is. I didn't say what you do. I said who you are. There's a major difference between what you do and who you are. You can be the entrepreneur, you can be the author, you can be the businessman, you can be the doctor, the lawyer, the wife, the husband. Those are just titles in what you do versus who you are. Me, for example, before I'm anything else, I'm a daughter. I'm a daughter of the Most High God. And out of that comes out everything else that God entrusts me with. But I don't lead with what I do, because what starts to happen is, in terms of being self-aware, you can lose yourself in what you do, and you start performing for accolades and things that really don't matter at the end. You can't take them with you, for sure. When you're gone, you won't get buried with your car, your house, all of these things that we work for so hard to get towards in our life. But understanding that you have an intrinsic value that cannot be replaced, cannot be duplicated. There will never be another Stefania. And I don't say that in a prideful way, but I say that in terms of being self-aware, knowing that I am first a daughter of God, and that cannot be replaced, that cannot be duplicated. And there's so much security in that, because no one can come and revoke that. People can try to revoke the entrepreneur, the author, and all of these other things that I do, but you can't revoke a daughter. A daughter will always be a daughter, and that's not going to change. And when you have your identity secured in a solid foundation that cannot be shaken, when trials do come, when you start making less money in business, or when a system shuts down or something happens that's outside of our control, you understand that your foundation is rooted in a solid foundation that cannot be moved. And that's why most times when you see outrage in the media about certain programs, DEI, and all of these different things, everyone is outraged and always on this emotional high that the world is constantly on. But when you're rooted and you have your roots firmly rooted in Christ, and knowing that you are God's daughter, nothing, I don't care what they take, nothing can come against that. And becoming self-aware is understanding that your identity cannot be shaken. And if you have trouble separating who you are from what you do, my advice would be to go on a self-discovery. You'll be amazed at how much you start discovering about yourself when you take the limits off, take the titles off, and truly lock in within yourself. And I remember being asked this question, because you guys can go through my previous videos on my channel, and it was this one video that I titled How God Told Me to Move to Texas, and even most recently how God told me to start a faith-based clothing brand. Well, the only way that I'm able to hear God's voice is because I'm able to quiet outside voices. I'm able to truly look within, quiet my soul at times, because sometimes our soul can be so loud and we hear so much inner chatter. But I'm able to, not by my strength alone, but this has happened through time and practice. When I go in prayer and meditation, I'm able to quiet everything, get still. And those are the moments that I hear God even more clearly. I remove my emotions. I remove everything else, and I'm able to hear him clearly. The instructions that he gives me, that is the only way that I'm able to do that, through being self-aware and being in tune with myself, being in tune with God. When you start really developing your relationship with God, what you will notice is that the relationship that you have with yourself will also begin to develop. And I said this in one of my books. It's hard to know the creation if you don't know the creator. If I really want to get to know this water and the ingredients and everything that this water was made of and the capacity and everything, sure, I could read the label and all of these things, but I really want to pick the brain of the person who made it. I really want to go and sit down and have a conversation with them and get to know them. And in return, I will get to know their product. It's the same with our relationship with God. Sometimes we're looking for all the other sources, all the other things that tells us who we are, but we're not going to the main source, which is God. He is the only one who will be able to reveal to you who you are. Outside of that, nothing else will make sense. I'm telling you guys, I've tried to do it other ways. I've tried to do it the New Age way, which tells you that you're God. And when I truly locked in with God for real, outside of religion, because sometimes religion can even limit you. It could confine you to these four corners, that God is outside of that. God is so unlimited, and sometimes we limit him to the four corners. We don't get to see his full capacity because we have our limits on him. So I had to come outside of the religious paradigms. I had to come outside of the New Age paradigms and truly lock in with God for myself, and being bold and confident enough to stand on that. So what happens naturally when you know who you are, when you understand your identity, what happens is you can clearly distinguish what's in alignment and what's outside of alignment. This even makes sense even in a dating world. When you go out in a dating world and you're dating people without a level of self-awareness, you pick bad. Your picker is off because you don't know who you are. How will you know who is able to walk with you or who is able to offer you what you need if you don't know who you are? If you don't have a level of self-awareness within yourself, how will you know what fits you? It's like going into a shoe store and you don't know your size. You're just trying on every size. Maybe you're a size 8, you're trying on a size 5, maybe a size 4, maybe a size 3, maybe a size 2. But becoming self-aware, you walk into that store knowing what size you are and knowing what fits and what doesn't. What's in alignment and what's not in alignment. There's certain brand sponsorships I'm not able to take because they're not in alignment. There's certain people groups that I'm not able to be around because they're not in alignment. There are certain places I'm not able to go because they're not in alignment. And that comes from a level of self-awareness, knowing who I am, knowing where I'm going, and knowing who and what can come with me and what simply can't. We make better decisions when we're self-aware and we think from a place of being sober-minded versus being emotional and just doing things because someone told you to do it. Being angry because someone told you should be angry. No, actually, I'm not. This is a really freeing place to be in because you're not susceptible to outside pressure. When you look at the world now and you see everything that's going on, something in the news is always trying to provoke some level of emotion, some level of fear. There needs to be this, there's that. But when you get into the place of being self-aware and truly locking in within yourself and shutting out every outside noise, it's almost like a force field. That's the best way that I can describe it, because you become you come into this place where you're shielded. You're shielded from so much stuff that wants to come in and destroy your attention. And you'll be surprised how many people don't sit with themselves. Don't sit with themselves long enough to hear what's going on the inside. We have so many distractions. Even our phones. There are times where I have to intentionally put my phone to the side to just have a moment of stillness and quiet, because there are so many outside distractions. And if we're not careful, those distractions can throw us off course. They really can. And a part of being still and becoming self-aware is being able to identify those distractions and sidestepping them. Like, this is not for me. This is not for me. And not being reactive, which is a video that I did earlier on. Learning what deserves your reaction and what simply doesn't. Not being moved and swayed by outside sources telling you what you should fear, telling you what you should believe, telling you all of these things, but truly looking within. How often do we do that? It takes courage to do it, because what happens is that'll keep us from going within is trauma. And we don't want to face our trauma. We don't want to face the things that we've covered up, right? To just forget. But what if I told you that going within, even as it relates to those traumatic things that may have happened to you, on the other side of actually confronting it is a greater level of freedom. Freedom that suppressing your emotions and drinking or sex or drugs will not get you. We spend so much time running from ourselves because we don't want to face those things. But what if I told you that on the other side of everything you're running from is freedom? Freedom from your past, freedom from the inner voice that's constantly lying, telling you that you're worthless, you're nothing. Everything that you actually need, it's already within you. It's not on the outside. It's not anything on the outside that you can find. It's already actually within you. But are you brave enough to go within? Because going within looks like confronting your trauma. Confronting it, changing the patterns that you've adopted over the course of time because of your trauma. Going within looks like holding yourself accountable to make better decisions. And there are so many of us, our lives could look so different if we made different decisions. But we're not able to make different decisions if we're not self-aware. We don't hold ourselves accountable to a different standard. Because we go through life just distracted and just trying to just forget about everything that ever happened in our lives that caused us to be uncomfortable or that may have hurt us. So before we go to the next point, my challenge for you, if you've made it to the point of this video, my challenge for you is to practice stillness. To go within. Maybe spend a day not going on social media so much. Spend a day with yourself. You'll be so surprised at the stuff you start hearing. And the last and final thing, number 3. Becoming self-aware will require you to unlearn and relearn. Becoming self-aware will require you to unlearn and then relearn. There are some things that you may have been taught in your childhood or even in your early adult life that were simply wrong. And when you become still enough to go within and quiet the noise, you can dictate and be able to detect those lies. And when you do detect those lies, what you're now responsible to do is unlearn to relearn. No, like for me, the way that I grew up seeing love, that's not healthy. That's not real love. So I had to unlearn the idea that I have about love and relearn what it means to love and be loved. Love is patient. Love is kind. Love holds no records of wrong. Love is long-suffering. So what is it that you've been taught in your life, in your early childhood, or even as you went through life later on through different groups and organizations? What is it that you've been taught that you need to actually unlearn and relearn different patterns and relearn what's actually healthy, what's actually right? Because from there, once we relearn the right way to do things, it becomes a new norm. It becomes a new norm, and it becomes like this inner compass that guides us and leads us through life. But it's hard to operate from a new space if you still have the same old wiring. And that's why the Word of God tells us that to not be conformed to the patterns of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Everything is up here. Everything is up here. The wiring, the subconscious programming, everything is in your mind, which is also connected to your heart. So for some of us, we have to unlearn and relearn how to forgive, what it means to truly forgive, what it means to truly release bitterness that contaminates all of our other relationships because we can't let go of what happened to us 5, 8, 10 years ago. Some of us, we have to unlearn even our finances, what it means to be a good steward over finances. Some of us, we keep praying for God to bless us, and when He does, you squander it. It's not that God doesn't want to bless you, but it's just that He knows that when He does give you the finances, you won't be able to steward them. So there are some times when we're praying for specific things, God requires us to become the person that'll actually be able to steward what we're praying for. Because if He releases premature blessings into our lives, it'll destroy us. It'll destroy us, maybe even the people around us. And that's why parents don't give 3-year-olds cars. What is a 3-year-old going to do with a car? In the same way, God, who is a good father, will not give us things until we're ready. And that readiness looks like unlearning toxic patterns and traits that we've adopted as normal. And sometimes we're so used to an environment. This is the best example that I can think of. You ever have a garbage can inside of your home and it's time to take it out? The trash is time to take it out. It smells bad. But if you stay in that room long enough, you start to get used to it. But try walking outside, stay a couple minutes, maybe 10, 15 minutes, and walk back inside. You smell it differently. Sometimes we have to get out of the environments that we're in to learn new ways of operating and being. That word is for somebody because I wasn't planning on going there. Sometimes we have to get out of those environments. Expose ourselves to different ways of life. Expose ourselves to different ways of thinking and operating. And sometimes I like to people watch, and I'm in Houston now, and in certain parts of Houston, you get certain types of people that, and they're with their families, and you see how peaceful and harmonious they are in dealing with each other. Versus if you go to another side of town, you'll see that frustration and that anger and that hostility in the environment. Sometimes it's not you, it's your environment. And our environment does impact us as people because you start operating from what you've been around. You indirectly become what your environment is. Indirectly. And that's why I've had to get out of certain environments, and I've watched myself for the past couple of years. I've watched myself grow. And there are some times I will look in the mirror. I lie to you guys not. And I won't even recognize myself. There are some times where I'll see myself doing certain things I never would have thought I'd be able to do. Never. This same girl, if you would have told me a couple years before that I would be here doing this now, it would not have made sense. But it's amazing how much growth can happen in our lives when we actually expose ourselves to different environments, people, places, and things. So those are a couple of tips that have worked for me in my life in becoming more self-aware, being more self-confident. And of course, these tips they're in no particular order. Sometimes you may need to leave your environment to start unlearning and relearning, and then work your way backwards to quiet the noise. So it's in no particular order, but these principles work. They work. But you just have to be intentional about building your life in a way that's different than how it's always been. And this is the famous quote I always quote it. Insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over and over again, but yet expecting a different result. So what are you going to do that's different than what you've done throughout the years before? That you can actually commit from this day forward to doing in your life that'll actually change some things up for you. Can I just remind you that you're not waiting for God. God is waiting on you. Everything that you already need in your life, God already did what he needs to do. The Bible says that God has already blessed us with all spiritual blessings. We have to get ourselves in alignment and make the choices that'll lead us to those places he has already predestined for us. And that's why sometimes, I don't know if you guys are dreamers, but there are sometimes God will reveal his future plans to us in our dreams or in our visions. And then we get in the moment sometimes where we feel like, I've been here before. That's because God has already built what you need. He's already predestined everything that you need, but you just need to get in alignment. So that leads us to the end of this video. You guys, this was a really great video. I enjoy talking about personal development and things like this because I'm very passionate about it as it relates to personal growth and development. Because this is the process that the Lord has taken me through. And every time that I'm able to share these tips with you guys, I'm very fortunate and overjoyed because I know that someone will benefit greatly, as I did, from some of these principles that I share in these videos. So if you want to support the channel, I would challenge you guys to click the link in my bio. Visit our store, fearlesslyfree.store. Get your merch. And definitely be sure to send the pictures in our merch. If you take any pictures, send them at fearlesslyfree.store. And don't forget to hit that like button, comment, share, and subscribe. And until next time, bye. Love you guys.